Israel Live.
Now, very first story, statistics available at the National Road Safety Commission indicate pedestrians are increasingly being exposed to life-threatening accidents on the country's roads. The figures show nearly half of road traffic-related deaths and injuries involve a pedestrian, a situation experts attribute mainly to the failure of road designs to factor their needs. To highlight the problem, the second UN Road Safety Week has been launched at the Abakan-La Paz intersection of the George Walker Bush Highway, where 30 people were killed in similar fashion in 2012 alone.
It was unanimous amongst the stakeholders involved in the launch that a pedestrian is the most vulnerable road user, especially because most of the other road users move more significantly faster than the pedestrian, who also have no bodily protection in the event of a collision or a crash. The incidence is said to be more pronounced in low-income and middle-income countries. Transport Minister Jifar Tivo, who launched the Road Safety Week at the Abakan-La Paz Medina station, says children, teenagers and the aged stand the greatest risks.
23% of all pedestrian deaths affect children, mostly of school-going age, under the age of 16, while 6% are under the age of 5. 73% of these deaths occur while pedestrians cross the road.
The inability to enforce the laws and the failure to empower the road users with the requisite knowledge to minimize the risk and reduce the fatalities has also been identified as another factor. The campaign for the Safety Week, dubbed Be Alert, Look Out for the Other Road Users, aims to address the numerous accidents recorded on that stretch of the motorway. According to the Transport Minister, her outfit is working with other partners to declare a fatality-free N1 highway.
We will visit your homes, offices, your palaces, terminals, churches, mosques, lorry parks, as we are here today, with the message, be alert, look out for other road users, so that together we can make the pedestrian the least vulnerable road user.
The Minister for Roads and Highways, Alhaji Amin Amidu Suleimana, entreated the general public to reprimand drivers who flout the laws.
Our passengers, particularly, when you are in vehicles and the driver is being reckless, please, it is your responsibility to save your lives. Just draw his attention that he's overspeeding. Even I do it to my driver. When you speed, I tell you, where are you going? I'm the one going. Have I told you I'm in a hurry?
The Executive Director of the National Road Safety Commission, Noble Lapia, also urged drivers to participate in such programs so they will be adequately informed.
No one is immune to road traffic crashes. We are vulnerable, irrespective of the type of vehicle you use. That's why it must not only be the Road Safety Commission or how very good your vehicle is, but every Ghanaian, every road user must be seen to be advocates for road safety and must start from us.
The MTTU boss, ACP Awuni, also encouraged drivers to be law-abiding.
I'm going to direct that drivers from this area, police must pay a very stringent eye on them because they are failing to listen to what we are telling them.
The authorities have promised to address the concerns raised by the drivers in the next 3 weeks.
In other news, 2 people have been killed in renewed clashes between Konkombas and Bimobas at Pemali near Nangpanduri in the northern region Thursday morning. Public Relations Officer of the Northern Regional Police Command, ASP Ebenezer Tete, says the deaths came about following sporadic shooting between the 2 ethnic groups. Several houses have been torched in the process. The violence was said to have been sparked by disagreement over a parcel of land. Now, ASP Ebenezer Tete tells Joy News police patrol teams have been dispatched to the area to restore calm. He joins us on the line now for an update on the station. Good evening to you, ASP, and thank you very much for your time. What is the current situation in the Pemali area?
As we speak now, the men are on the ground. They are doing what they are mandated to do to bring the situation under total, control. Calm has returned to the area, and they are at the various checkpoints that they are supposed to be. The patrols have also been intensified, and calm has returned to the place.
Okay, have any arrests been made yet?
So far, not yet. Not yet.
But are you pursuing any suspects?
Definitely. Definitely, there are persons who are behind this Dastardly Act. So investigations have started, and we are going to rely on the pieces of information that we are going to get. We are also going to extend our tentacles to see if we can group in some persons who will be pointed out to us so that they will assist us in the investigation. So we will be pursuing certain persons who are suspected to have been involved in the act. And after when we are able to get hold of them, we will continue to do the necessary thing that we are mandated to do to help bring peace to the area.
Right, thank you very much. You heard ASP Ebenezer Tete. He's a PRO for the Northern Region Police Command. In other stories, now 6 people, including 2 women, are in the grips of the WA police for allegedly attempting to traffic some children to Burkina Faso for ritual purposes. The children, 25 in all, with their heads completely shaved, and the suspects were arrested by the police upon a tip-off. But some residents are demanding the release of the suspects, saying they were going for an initiation rites, which is a common practice among Lobi ethnic group in the region. Rafiq Salam sent in this report from Wa.
According to the Acting Public Relations Officer of the Upper West Regional Police Command, ASP Edmond Nyamiche, the children numbering 25 and aged between 6 and 15 years were seen seated under a mango tree around Wazongo, waiting for a vehicle to cross over to Burkina Faso. ASP Nyamiche said preliminary investigations revealed that the children are from Naha, a village close to Kumasa on the Wabamboy Road. All the children were clean-shaven. 6 middle-aged persons, including 2 women, who were arrested, are helping the police in their investigations.
For the purpose for shaving the children, we cannot establish why they are being shaved. Our concern is that we are going to unravel if the children are being trafficked to anti-human. As we know, trafficking now these days is on the ascendancy. So we are investigating to see the truth in it.
Meanwhile, some young men supposedly from the children's village stormed the police station demanding their release as well as that of the 6 suspects. According to them, the suspects had done no wrong, explaining the trip to Burkina Faso was an age-old practice akin to a pilgrimage where participants receive spiritual upliftment from the gods and return to the country with new names. Na Adams Tifri is one of the people who stormed the police station. He says detaining the children is an infringement on their fundamental human rights.
They should allow to go. To me, I see it that it's part of what their tradition. The Constitution even defends what our culture. And for belonging to any religion, they are just going there as a sign of what? Worship. So to me, I don't see any problem to this for sending them to that particular place for that particular what? Right to undertake. It isn't that they are sending them to use any one of them for any other human sacrifice. They are just going there to undertake what? Their cultural rights.
The children have since been released to return to their communities. From Wa, Rafiq Salam's report for Joy News.
Elsewhere, an acute water shortage that has hit Cape Coast and surrounding communities is being blamed on the drying up of the Brimso Dam. The crisis has badly affected Cape Coast's famous schools and educational institutions. The surrounding towns whose water supply has been affected include Abura, Asebo, Kwaman, Kese, Infansimang, and Hemang Lower Denchira districts. Central Regional Correspondent Georgina Apia has more.
Residents, as a result, can be seen on the streets of the town with buckets or the yellow jerrycans known as Kufor gallons, trooping to the nearest water body to fetch water. For many of them, the Kakum River in Cape Coast has become their savior.
Pipe na yenyanka kankakra. Nti this week ya ene hoda ya brawo nsu ho na birim roko mpasam na esuechi na efutu na azen rokasa nsu and pe ampo mako mpasam ho bi makasa nsu minya pipe na omba oba nkitsin na echerem pansa na nsu na ayama.
At the dam site at Brimso, it is all too clear why the taps are not flowing. Residents are alarmed, especially because they say the dam is usually full.
I'm saying when Champaya be on a dam and our company, and be on them. Cromfuya, so yes, and them sounds of your fans, or they're washing away you on my ama. And you're seeing a perfume be on them, and I had a of a hoyan.
Meanwhile, the manager at the Brimstone Dam station declined to speak to the issue until he's gotten clearance from the regional office. Georgina Pierce report for Joy News.
A legal practitioner, Theodore Inso Aji Mazoya, is proposing a merger of the Food and Drugs Authority and the Ghana Standards Authority. This, he says, will help clear doubts in the minds of consumers, which of the two agencies has the final stamp of approval for a product. His proposal was contained in recommendations presented by the Consumer Protection Agency for inclusion in the draft Consumer Protection Policy.
The Consumer Protection Bill, when passed into law, will among others protect the rights of consumers. But according to the Consumer Protection Agency, there are some lapses in the draft policy document which must first be rectified. At a sensitization workshop on the draft bill, the agency pointed out that the consumer's right to safety, information and right to choose are not clearly spelled out in the draft. Theodore Adimazoya is a legal practitioner.
Because the bureaucratic structure of our institutions that are required to ensure that consumer interest is protected are very long, sometimes not taking into consideration the illiteracy rate in the country. One of the easiest ways that we can deal with it is to take away the monitoring and evaluation aspect and leave it to the institutions to deal with, and have the dispute settlement system on consumer complaints. Either it's in respect of financial activity, it's in respect of food, safety and products, or even in the banking sector or professional service delivery, that those things can be dealt by an institution that understands consumer rights, and not an institution that is mandated first to deal with monitoring of standards and at the same time ensure that remedies are provided for people who make complaints.
Theodore Adimazoya also argues the absence of a law specifying, for instance, which of the two agencies' logos consumers have to look out for when buying particular products leaves room for doubts. He thus suggested that the Food and Drugs Authority should be made to operate as a department under the Ghana Standards Authority.
The two entities, by their law, have provisions that requires them to deal with the same products. So while the Standards Authority law was passed in 1975, that allows them to do certification and standardization of food and drugs in Ghana, the Food and Drugs Board Act allows them to also do the same thing. So you see a lot of products in the market that either have both of them, their certification on it, or logos embossed, or they have one of it and it satisfies the requirement. One of the easiest way to deal with it is to have the Food and Drugs Board operate as a department under the Standards Authority, and that will require changing the legislation.
CEO of the Consumer Protection Agency, Kofi Kapito, said for the consumer public to be educated about their rights, there must first be a law to protect those rights.
Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Nana Oyelith, a few days ago visited Akamu in the Eastern region to announce a review of the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program to cover more beneficiaries. The visit, however, offered the people of the area an opportunity to confront her with some of their pressing issues, notably rampant teenage pregnancy and the lack of employment and opportunities for further education. Gifty Andor-Pia has more.
Located along the Ekwapem-Togo range, Akwamu is the state and seat capital of the Akwamu state. Akwamu Kingdom consists of 36 towns, of which Akwamu is the capital. It does not look like a very big town, and the people residing here appear to share common problems. Government interventions may solve some of these problems, but the success of the intervention largely depends on the real needs and expectations of the people. And that was what they told us.
Water pipe ma ye bre and sana ibia. Eko be say 2 weeks kre ni yenya pipe ni anum frawia ni anum.
Voter lake.
Voter
Namuni pipe.
So in bebre woman sebe eba.
Yenya light duman wodun dum na mayen. Ma yen bribia ye basa. Yen kwan nyina ye basa. Yenya sika anye adwuma. Say funu so ye nsu nto. Ana yetumi akwa afum na yenya bribi no ba de abafie ne nkola nso yenya ntia yen nkola nyina ye basa. Me ye adwuma. Uni adwuma. Debi. Ntu ye de na adwuma. Ha misu mitwa me hu kakra. Ebi o wa menya akodo.
The hospital. Yeni midwives for honum. Second, Cronia woman, yeni ene vocational school be our housing, yeni secondary school housing. Ya benviare ya naso ya brewa light on. Crony mwina soon sabe unam stokruma, unya beti matama de kura de abouti. Ya pa on choda, wanda woma, ya brewu kroyi.
Ya wonchire ya papa, pegmini, obi ni eduma fra no waye.
Beside acute water problems which compel them to drink directly from the water lake, one thing that does not elude visitors in this average-sized town is the large number of children found here. Most of them, we were told, were of teenage parentage.
Yeni mwe be yesu kana betena kromu atene namase se wan be wo kromu a wonya hyen ye biem enti yesre wonda se wo hwe school wasem eya mayen a ye se awo no ebekọ fem kakra mayen.
Many of the youth we lent have no or very limited education, and this is what they want to tell government.
Yesren oma nyuma bi mraha
Ope bibi na wadi factory edi ebe mpaboa ana di ebe maye yensu yeni beji
o mesiti kro ni maye no madwuma bi mra ha ne ntumi nya bi titiri kro ne mmea titiri ni nya adwuma melema no polisi wo kwafu mankanye bone ase ye mmea no titiri.
When these problems were communicated to the Gender, Children and Social Protection Minister, she had this to say.
We will use the social protection interventions, less debt, and then also look at those who can still go to school. You know, the Ghana Education Service has the re-entry policy for pregnant girls. And also working with the Queen Mothers who are here to see how we can help to reintroduce or get some of these girls back into school. They have a cassava plantation and they have some women working, and they've been assisted by the French government, the French embassy, and also the Ministry of Agric to set up a gari factory. And I know they've been supplying to some schools. So these are NGOs that we are looking at working with to ensure that there is some employment for some of the girls in this district. That is those who cannot go back into school. We are willing to help. They are willing to support us.
Their excitement about a minister's presence in their town was obvious and indicative of their expectations in the very near future. Gifty Andopia for Joy News.
Right, as we brought you in our very first story, statistics available at the National Road Safety Commission indicates pedestrians are increasingly being exposed to life-threatening accidents on the country's roads. Tonight, we ask you to get onto our Facebook wall and tell us if you know of any roads that you think the needs of the pedestrians were not factored in their construction to avoid the needless. Tell us where these roads are and tell us what you think is missing. Dolka Kobe has posted a comment there. He says Teshi, but Dolka, I'd be grateful if you could be a bit more specific about where exactly this road in Teshi is. You're watching Joy News at 8. We'll be back with more stories. Don't go away. An Accra High Court has dismissed a suit filed by former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Francis Kpega, against the New Patriotic Party's Nana Akufo-Addo. The former Supreme Court Justice sued the 2012 presidential candidate for impersonation and for holding himself out as a lawyer when the evidence available to him proved otherwise. But the court, presided over by Justice Cecilia Sowa, dismissed the case, describing it as frivolous.
The
court heard the argument on the application on April 23 and adjourned the case to today before it dismissed Justice Beggar's application. The court held that based on the defendant's evidence placed before it and the plaintiff's failure to file an affidavit in opposition, it was striking out the case. It was the court's considered opinion that based on the affidavit evidence placed before it, Nana Akufo-Addo was the same person as W.A.D. Akufo-Addo, who was called to the outer bar of the Middle Temple in 1971 and subsequently admitted and called on the role of lawyers in Ghana by the General Legal Council. Though Nana Akufo-Addo was not in court, he was represented by Mr. Frank Davis and Mr. Godfred Dame, who told Joy News the court's ruling puts to rest the issue as to whether Nana Addo was a lawyer or not.
As was evidenced by the exhibit that we attached to the affidavit, also clear the man was indeed called to the English bar first and foremost in 1971 and subsequently to the Ghana bar in 1975. And indeed, he himself had done many of these constitutional cases of the past 40 years or so. He'd done a fair number of them with very much success, and most of them were argued before Justice Beggar himself. So just wonder to himself as to why Justice Beggar would now seek to challenge his legal qualification. So we knew the verdict was expected. We were not surprised at all. Just that, as I indicated, on account of all the abuses that had been cast against him, on account of all the verification that he has suffered, was very refreshing to him.
Counsel for Justice Beggar, Mr. David Annan, who was not satisfied with the outcome, announced his intention to contest the ruling.
Meanwhile, day 10 of the Supreme Court hearings for principal witness for the petitioners, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, answering questions targeted at the data represented in the affidavit evidence submitted in court. Cross-examining the witness, lawyer Chachu Chikata sought to prove that the petitioners had duplicated, triplicated and quadruplicated some of the pink sheets submitted as evidence.
Hearing of the election petition case before the Supreme Court commenced on a dramatic note when lawyer Benoni Amekuji attempted to introduce an amicus curiae brief to the court. An amicus curiae educates the court on points of law that are in doubt, gathers or organizes information, or raises awareness about some aspect of the case that the court might otherwise miss. The move was, however, objected to by lawyer Philip Addison, lead counsel for the petitioners, who informed the court that the intervention could not be allowed because it was partisan, lacked the necessary facts to proceed on, and did not have supporting affidavits. Lawyers Tony Letha, Koshi Aiden and Chachu Chikata all rose to support the objection raised by Philip Addison. In dismissing the application by lawyer Benoni Amekuji, the president of the panel of 9 justices of the Supreme Court sitting on the case, Justice William Anam Atukuba, indicated that the lawyer's intervention did not follow due process as pertains to the rules of the court. Chachu Chikata then took his turn and in a 5-hour cross-examination sought to establish that the petitioners had duplicated, triplicated and quadruplicated some of the pink sheets submitted as evidence.
We are here to defend, as I've always said, every single polling station, every single pink sheet that our the petitioners have claimed is faulty, because we believe that we won those polling stations fairly.
Dr. Bawumia was also cross-examined on several issues, including the reasons why the MPP's polling agents did not object to some irregularities the MPP was claiming occurred during the elections.
President John Mahama has filled up positions in his government with the swearing in of the last batch of 35 deputy ministers today. He advised the appointees not to engage in media battles to settle scores with colleagues and directed them to get down to work by reporting to their various ministries at 8 a.m. tomorrow, 3rd May 2013.
The government is now complete, and we can get down seriously to the work of fulfilling the mandate for which the people of Ghana elected us into office. I expect you to work very hard to assist your ministers to be able to achieve the vision that we have outlined for your various ministries. Do in the name of the Almighty God swear.
The deputy ministers were led by the president to take the oaths of office, secrecy and allegiance. They included former deputy ministers and new inclusions like former spokesperson for the president, John Abdullahi Jinapo, and actress Abla Jifa Gomashi. President Mahama reiterated his call for modesty, humility and accessibility.
I know it can be difficult when you have huge lines of people sitting outside your office and wanting to see you, but it's because of the people of Ghana that we are where we are, and so we must have it in our hearts to make ourselves accessible to them. It is absolutely unacceptable to go on the media and cast aspersions against any of your colleagues or any of the ministers or any member of government. It's absolutely unacceptable. If there's anything that worries you, come to the president or the vice president or the chief of staff or the executive secretary, as the case might be.
He refuted suggestions that some of his appointments were not based on merit.
Often when women are appointed, people think that you're being done a favor or it's because of some natural attributes you have. But we do believe that you have all been appointed based on your merit. And I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to perform to the best of your ability. People's ability to work with each other are based on interpersonal relationships and their own attitudes and their own makeup. It's not because of gender. And so we need to discard those prejudices we have against our women. If men can work together in one ministry, women can work together in another ministry.
A call was made on the women in government especially to prove their abilities while in office to offset the prejudice held against them. Speaking on behalf of the other deputy ministers, Deputy Minister of Education Okujeto Ablakwa pledged their cooperation and submissiveness to their minister.
We know he has very high standards. The public expectation of his government is very, very high, and we cannot afford to fail and we cannot afford to disappoint him. We will not be quarrelsome and we are not going to disobey orders. We will make sure that we are very cooperative so that His Excellency's vision will be executed and executed in good time.
Right, so tonight on the Bulletin, I've been asking you to help us highlight or throw light on some of the roads that have been constructed in your part of town, which they didn't factor the concerns of pedestrians. And I've gotten a number of comments coming in. Anamala Uma Kabo says, in Wa, from the police station down to the traffic light, no pedestrian crossing, I'm sure that's what you want to say. And it's highly threatening. And then Winifred Senna says, roads in Cape Coast Township. So keep your comments coming in. Let's highlight some of these roads so we can get the authorities to do something about it, hopefully. We're taking a break. Business News is up next. Now, Ghanaian and Chinese workers working on the country's gas infrastructure project have resumed work. There were fears the gas infrastructure project could suffer further delays after the workers were asked to go home 2 days ago. The Chinese firm Sinopec abandoned the project at Etuabo in the Western region because of non-payment on the part of government. But the Energy Ministry says some assurances have been made to get the contractor to return to the site. And Joy News Western Regional Correspondent Kweku Supepra confirmed earlier today the contractor was back on site along with the workers. Microfinance companies keep springing up every day, and yet access to credit remains a challenge for the businesses they expected to finance. Players in the microfinance sector, however, say they can fully realize their potential of generating micro businesses if rates on loans are lowered enough for such businesses to thrive and contribute to economic growth.
The contribution of micro and small businesses to the country's economic growth cannot be underestimated. But for those in the sector, acquiring loans to expand their businesses continue to be a challenge. Rates on bank loans are perceived to be higher, leaving micro and small enterprises to follow microfinance institutions established to provide savings and credit services at lower rates for them to thrive. A number of these microfinance companies are springing up in the country, but micro-businesses continue to cry over difficulties in accessing credit.
Most of the microfinance businesses, they have a cost structure which is not acceptable to make them sustainable. So as a result of that, they try to transfer the cost to their client, and that makes the interest rate very, very high. So if a microfinance business is charging an interest rate of 5% per month, it seems to this client that they could manage it. But you realize that if it is 5%, then virtually it is 60%, far, far higher than the commercial rate that we have in the country.
Players in the industry admit their rates appear low to clients but are higher in the long term. They attribute the situation to high interest rates on the public loans they access.
We also borrow money from the public to be able to do this. And then at what rate are you doing that? You see, if you are getting it at a lower rate, fine. You can also lower your rate to be able to do what? I mean, get everybody on board. But situation where it is high, you have to survive as a business entity. So we just peg it at the rate at which we borrow it from the public and then be able to also advance it to this client. You see, but we advise the client on what to do. So at the end of the day, I believe that with our situation, the client does not end up by being worse off.
The proliferation of microfinance companies may be providing employment for a section of the public, but their impact currently on the growth of micro-businesses remains minimal.
The high interest rate is such that the clients are not able to manage this high interest rate within a short period of time to be able to repay. And as a result of that, they put in various mechanisms that actually put a lot of operational pressure on the people who are managing these micro businesses. So you realize that many of them, within a short period of time, these micro businesses collapse. So
microfinance companies, though finding means of reducing rates, funding from government will help a great deal in assisting micro businesses.
If government should extend its wings to the microfinance industry, I believe that, the objective of setting up Maslow, this microfinancing, companies can address that issue. So what should happen is that government shouldn't give all the money to Maslow to administer. Government should maybe look at the microfinance industry and then see those that are properly licensed and are doing very well. Government can advance some of these funds to them. For now, we can't lower the rates because we are buying money at a higher rate, and that's what we can do to also survive as businesses.
Until rates on loans are drastically reduced, microfinance institutions will abound, but without pricing their loans based on financial mobilization from micro businesses, the economy cannot fully reap the benefits of such businesses. Abigail Adomakwenchi for Joy News. Was brought to you in association.
Sports is brought to you in association with.
Time for the very latest in the world of sports. My name is George Adejunior. Tonight we'll talk a lot about boxing before we do that of soccer. And the board The Ghana Boxing Authority have summoned Fresh Kin Promotions, promoters of Joseph Agbeko's world title winning bout against Luis Melendez, and referee Roger Bano, who officiated last weekend's hotly disputed fight between Emmanuel Tego and Filipino Ronald Ponteas, to answer questions of unpaid purses and bad officiating respectively. The hearing took place this afternoon, and Joy Sports caught up with President of the GBA, lawyer Peter Zuenes, afterwards.
In the aftermath of that controversial officiating and scoring, we have invited referee Bano to appear before the board at today's meeting. I don't want to prejudice the outcome, whatever we will do, but we will let the public know the outcome of our discussions, that we have tasked our committees to be up and doing as far as their work is concerned. In fact, the committees will be inaugurated sometime next week. And I believe that when all the committees are working at full throttle, we should be able to see a lot of improvements in what is going on. So if anybody has to complain about the outcome of the fight, it has to be the opposing boxer who was at the receiving end of that. But we, as a local sanctioning body, have to bring our erring members to book if they are found to be culpable in this respect. And that is precisely what we are doing, if they are found to be culpable. Unfortunately, the most bizarre of the scoring, the 118-115, was not even by a Ghanaian referee. It was by referee Adam Bettin of Benin, and we want to complain to his federation as well.
Let's stay in the world of boxing. And Chief Executive Officer of Golden Mike Promotions, Mike Teta, says all is set for tomorrow's international cruiserweight bout between Ghana's Brian Makamoko, also known as Bukumbanku, and Georgian George Testos Rashili at the Accra Sports Stadium. The night dubbed Danger Zone Bill, organized by Golden Mike Promotions, would afford Brian Kamoko the chance to snatch the title in his newly found boxing weight division. Mike Teta spoke to Joy Sports.
It's my pleasure that all of you have been here helping me, supporting me morally. I'm expecting the fans to troop to the stadium tomorrow very early enough to have a good show, because Bama Kamoko is tempting to play some new progress. Lady fighter Ellen Joseph, residing in Ghana, domiciled in Ghana, being managed by Golden Mike Promotions. He's a Nigerian, and he is fighting for the IBF Female Featherweight Championship. It has never happened before in the annals of Ghana history. So I'm pleased to all and sundry to come to have a feel of that female championship. Their preparations are far advanced, and I think everything points positively to a good show, and they are all going to be happy after tomorrow. Publicity has gone very far. As far as you guys are concerned, you've done marvelously well for me. All of you, the media guys, you've done so well for me. I'm very grateful to you. Ticket prices are 10 cities for popular stand and 30 cities for the ringside.
All right, so let's talk about Chelsea, and something fantastic has happened. They've qualified to the finals, even though they're a couple of minutes into that game, because they're leading Basel by 3-1. On aggregate, it's 5-2. Congratulations, Israel. You are into the final.
Exactly, and Chelsea is making England proud.
At least I can say that.
Well, yeah.
But we're always encouraging teams in the Europa to come up to the UEFA Champions League. But it's good. And also,
it's on the 89th minute.
89 minutes right now.
Benfica 3, Fenerbahce 1, and then Chelsea 3, Basel 1.
So there you go. So it means that Chelsea and Benfica are set to meet in the final Europa League, and who knows, maybe you can win that one.
Well, yeah, and we'll make England even more proud.
So he's actually referring to how Manchester United have disappointed England.
He
didn't mention a name. That'll be all for sports. Have a good night, and he'll be taking us to showbiz.
Sports brought to you in association.
Right, so thanks to my studio director, Lola, I have my Facebook wall now available, and so you can get to see the comments that we've been missing. Tonight we've been talking about roads that are not very safe for pedestrians, and we've had quite a number come in. Now, Kankoran Tamaklo says, check Takrade CP Road, buses parked along the pedestrian walkway, and he's asking why that should be. And then Dixon Wayanu says, Accra Newtown Road is the worst. Thank you very much for all your comments. And then, before we go, I'd like you to direct you to myjoyonline.com, your most comprehensive source for news, and some of the stories there. And we're going to be posting our stories there. There's a story here, don't ask politicians to share in the poverty of single spine. That's by the minority leader. And the 2 dead houses torch in renewed clashes between Konkombas and Bimobas and Kongombas. That story is also there on our webpage. Before we go, a quick run through our top stories. The failure to factor the concerns of pedestrians in the design of roads is costing needless lives as they are increasingly being exposed to motor accidents. 2 have been reported dead in renewed clashes in Pemali near Nangpanduri in the northern region, but the police say calm has now been restored. And the High Court has dismissed the suit by Justice Bega challenging the 2012 MPP flag bearer Nene Akufo-Addo's qualification as a lawyer. While the Supreme Court continued to hear the election petition seeking to annul thousands of polling station results in the 2012 election. And President Mahama sworn in the final batch of deputy ministers and charged them to get down to work immediately. That's it for the bulletin. For more news, like I said, log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Israel Live. Have a good evening.